Welcome back to Behind the Business Chat. Every business has a story, and I'm setting out to learn the stories behind some of Chattanooga's most loved businesses. This week, I had the wonderful opportunity to speak with the owners of Smith Perry Berries Farms. This farm is known for strawberries, pumpkins, and other produce, but their number one attraction are the sunflowers every July. Unfortunately, due to typical farm life, obstacles came up, so one farmer is missing for most of this chat. But don't worry, he does show up eventually. Now let's meet the owners, Bill Perry and Aubie Smith, and Aubie will be joining us later. Where did the farm start? Did you start with sunflowers?
So this actually started, it was Aubie Smith's family farm. Okay. And it was a cattle farm, and they had some corn and things like that, sweet corn. This is the 12th year for the sunflowers, and it started out as a dove club. The dove club approached Aubie and says, hey, we'd like to, pay you to grow these for us and that sort of thing. And we did that for several years. He did that for several years. But we would see people would always want to stop and pick the flowers, or can we go take photos? And if you said no, they'd come back when you weren't around, that kind of stuff. And then we started noticing, and I didn't live up in this area yet. My farm's a half mile up there. I bought about 11 years ago. But he called me one day and he said, hey, they keep picking these sunflowers. Let's see what we can do. If they really want to come out, let's see if they're interested in really coming out and enjoying it, if they're willing to pick some and buy a few. And that's kind of how we got started. And so I guess we've been doing this 5 or 6 years now, and we don't charge the public to come out. They get to, you come out and take your own pictures and take pictures of your family. If you bring a professional photographer, we charge for that. But we want to make sure that folks can come out and have a good time and don't feel obligated to pay. This is kind of it's kind of a way of giving back, but it's also a way of opening up the farm to other things that we do, like strawberries in the spring and pumpkins in the fall. And it's kind of a nice midpoint. Plus, we want people to keep coming out and recognize, your food doesn't come from Walmart or, Food City. Somebody actually grows it, and there's the labor, the time, the equipment, all that's involved. So that's kind of how we got started. Aubie and I got started with the sunflowers. And then as we think back to 4 years ago, he drove a bus for the guys who picked for another strawberry producer. And after he had done that around 20-something years, the guy said, hey, we want to retire, and would you be interested in doing this? And we talked, and that's how we got into the strawberry business. This was our 4th year for strawberries, and we raised 8 acres, and then right behind that we go in and we plant pumpkins behind them. And we're trying to expand too. We've got some watermelons in the ground now, and okra, cantaloupe, and tomatoes. So we're trying to broaden our horizons too, and give people another reason to come back out and visit with us.
So do you all both have like a lot of farming experience? Like you're saying all these different crops and stuff, are you?
Yeah, so I'm a city boy. I got drug into this. Fortunately, Aubie grew up on a farm, so he's very well aware of the farm life and the lifestyle and, fertilizing and the equipment, those types of things. I've had to learn it. My background really is in transportation, so I know more about tractor trailers and some about the equipment. There's a lot of commonality. Right. But I didn't know that much about the actual farming, producing a crop. So we've learned a lot. We've learned a lot together, and he's shown me a lot too. So
yeah, that's why I was just wondering, because you're throwing out all these different crops. That I'm not an expert, but I'm pretty sure what okra plants need versus what sunflowers need are very different.
Yeah, you would be surprised. It's really not that much different. They'll require water, sunlight, and nourishment, just like us. So you got fertilizer, you got sunlight, and you got water, and we've had an abundance of water lately. So we're not short on rainfall right now.
Okay. So just so that I get things straight, the website, the way it's worded, it makes it seem like you opened up to the public for strawberries before you opened up to the public for sunflowers. Is that correct, or is that?
We really opened up to sunflowers first. Okay. And then we moved into strawberries about 4 years ago. This was our 4th year. Okay. And that's how we got. And we want to be, a couple of things we do to kind of help maintain sustainability is all of our irrigation's underground. And I can show you different things around that we do, because we felt like overhead irrigation, first of all, it's fairly wasteful. You lose a lot of your water to evaporation. Now in the winter that would be very beneficial to us, because then we could spray. If it's freezing, we could spray and the water encapsulate like strawberries. But that's such a small time frame that we would have to do that. It's just not valuable to us. So all of our fertilizer and water is done underground through drip tape too. It actually runs to the plant. Plant's roots grow to that. Sunflowers are a little different. After we work the ground and we fertilize the ground, then we plant the seeds. Then we're reliant on rain to help them. So during strawberry season, you don't want a lot of rain. For sunflowers to bloom, you want the rain, but they're just one backs right up to the other, because we plant around May the 10th. It's about 60 days of sunflowers from seed to bloom.
Oh, okay.
So, and then strawberry, our season runs from around April the 20th to just the week or so after Memorial Day.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I learned. So that's interesting that sunflowers you plant them and then, like, you plant them in the spring and they can bloom in the summer, whereas strawberries you plant in like late summer and they don't bloom till the next spring.
Well, yeah, we plant in October. We try and plant the first weekend in October for a spring harvest, and you got to replant them every year.
Yeah.
So that was new to me. I thought, hey, let's do it, and we'll get going. But we started with 1 acre, and we went to 3, then we went to 6, and this year we were at 8. So we were trying to manage. And farming really is no different than any other business. You've got to manage. You got to manage your costs. You got to manage your expenses. To work with your labor. There's not a labor budget. There's not an advertising budget. We know about how much it's going to cost per acre, and if it costs us more than that, then we really got to look and see what happened.
Yeah.
Some of it is equipment breakdown. We've got some new equipment, but we've got a lot of old equipment. Some of it probably 25 or 30 and 40 years old that we utilize too. So.
Yeah.
A lot of welding and replacing, repairing, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Would you say that's probably your biggest expense for the farm?
Our biggest single expense would be seeds and plants, and then right behind that is fertilizer and water. Okay. Those are our biggest expenses, and then right behind that's labor. So anytime we have to pay someone to do something where, and it's 2 families, but primarily Aubie and I do most of the work, and then when we have some crop coming in, or like this sunflower event, then our families step in and help us, like run the produce stand, or help us direct traffic, man the gates. We've got some high school ladies that come up and help us do the snow cones and lemonade. I've partnered with another couple that help us do the kettle corn. So you've got to kind of broaden the horizons to help take care of some of those other things to do. We also put up hay. We put up a lot of hay. Aubie, my partner, also does. If you came from the south, you saw the cornfields right down here.
Yeah.
So he cuts that for silage, and he custom cuts silage for people, and then they put in these big bags and those types of things, so that there's additional income for the farm. You can't just rely on 1 or 2 or 3 crops. You've got to diversify. You can't. You don't go to a restaurant and there's only 3 items on the menu.
Exactly.
So that's what you got to have.
Or a store and they only have 1 item.
That's right. You only get this coat, and it's only if it's. I think Henry Ford said it best. You can have any color car you want as long as it's black, when it ran off the assembly line starting out. That was true for many years, but our guests, they want different stuff. It's got to look a little different every year. We have different props that we set out, like the Vector, the spreader truck behind me, the orange Alice Chalmers tractor that an antique collector brings out every year. Those types of things, and the groovy van. You could even have the same props. You can have them in the same spot.
Yeah.
You got to move them around, because people want different experiences when they approach that equipment.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's great, because if they're coming out every year, which I'm assuming a lot of people do. Then they're wanting that familiar thing that they saw last year, but they also want it to be different. Right. What's the point of doing the same thing twice?
Yeah. So, is it in a different field? What's different about it? Last year we tried to do a maze. Now the corn's really tall this year, and a maze would have worked great. Last year was dry. We paid a guy to come cut a maze, and some of the corn, it was thin. The deer had gotten into it. Cutting the maze through sunflowers, it was too sparse. So my son actually, there's a neighbor up the street that has a helicopter, and he called him. He said, "Hey, would you take me for a ride up so I can at least see what it looks like?" And they did, and we had a large crowd watch, and it was pretty cool to see that. But you couldn't see it from the ground. It wasn't a maze. You could walk in and step over it because it wasn't tall enough.
Yeah.
But that's farming. I mean, it's just like this year with the rain. You can't. Every year's a little different.
It is kind of a gamble in a sense, because once you plant it, you don't know what's going to happen.
Exactly. This is no different than the stock market. You're investing your money in hopes of some, positive return, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And if you save well and you can do it again the next year. I don't know many farmers right now in our area that don't have a full-time job. It's just gotten to be. Yeah, so it's like my partner, he drives a school bus and then has other farming activities that he does, and then I work full-time in the transportation field.
Yeah, I guess it's for farming. I guess you kind of have to have the right amount of fields and like you have to have the right balance in order to really make it a full-time income.
You do.
And the right crops too, I'm sure, because obviously like sunflowers, they only last for almost 2 weeks, and then
right.
And then you have to have something else for the rest of the year.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's that's part of it. Pumpkins are already planted. We've got 4 different pumpkin patches around. I think there's 10 or 12 varieties of those, and several varieties of gourds and things. So we're already now. As soon as the strawberries are finished, we plant the pumpkins. So that it takes that long for them to mature, and we've got quite a few of our customers that are requesting high volume of pumpkins this year for their produce stands.
Okay.
So we do both wholesale and retail, and we're like any type of business like that. We've got a product, but it's a customer service that comes with it. You gotta have that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So speaking of the pumpkins and the gourds and everything, when did that start? When did you decide to get into that?
Well, the same year we got into the strawberries, then we said, there's got to be a second crop, and Aubie has a lot of contacts in the farming industry, so he was able to say, okay, I think this is what we want to do the first year. So we had quite a few jack-o'-lanterns and a few ornamentals, and then it's grown from that to, now this year 8 acres, and next year is going to be 12. Of strawberries, and then of course 12 of pumpkins, and it's just a lot of fun. It's a lot of work, but it's very rewarding.
Yeah.
So you see people come out that you and I would have never met if you hadn't said, "Hey, can I come up and do a story about just sunflowers?" And but there's a lot of people that come up that have never been here before, and when you cross the hill coming from the south, it's just kind of like takes your breath away for a minute when you see. So it's cool.
Yeah. So am I understanding you correctly? You plant the strawberries, and then once that season's over, you plant the pumpkins in the same exact fields where the strawberries
exact same rows.
Okay.
Yep. So we'll plant. We try and plant around the 1st October, early October, for a spring harvest. And then as soon as that's done, in some fields we'll actually pull the plants if we need to get them up quicker, or we'll bush hog the plants. We've got a bush hog. It's got a roller on the front and the back, and we lay it on the bed and go down through there and bush hog it, and then we come right back behind and plant the pumpkins. Okay. That way we get dual use out of the irrigation system, and we don't have to fertilize near as much, because we fertilize for the strawberries and it doesn't take as much for the pumpkins, and it's already there. It's where we fertilize. So we found that to be a cost savings for us in the long run.
And from the little bit that I know of farming, kind of like crop rotation, that's kind of built into that. Like you should use the field for multiple crops, not just the one.
Right, and we have to rotate. Typically the field across the street is sunflowers and some behind the house, but as we go out and look, we rotate in the field behind me here. The strawberries will be at one end, then we'll move them to the other, same way behind that. This is the first year we've actually planted anything other than sunflowers across the street. Sunflowers, they really don't hurt your soil like some other crops do. Other crops really take a lot of nutrients out, and you can't do them for as many years as you can sunflowers. Okay. So that's a learning that I had. Is knowing, okay, sunflowers you can plant for many years without any harm to the soil, but other crops, they have problems with them after so many years, and then you're not able to grow them for a period of time until the soil kind of heals itself. So
another question that I actually thought of while I was sitting here. So when sunflower season's over, I'm assuming there's still a bunch in the fields that haven't been picked and stuff like that. Do y'all just harvest those or anything?
We don't harvest, because we go back to why we started with sunflowers, or Aubie started with them, was there's a dove club that comes in here at the end, and then they have several hunts, very limited number of hunts and very limited number of guests that come in here, and so it's well maintained for a very healthy dove population in this area. So I guess you'd say we're conservationists. We take care of the water, but we also want to take care of the animals too. So through the winter, with the sunflowers that are left, the deer come in and they'll eat. Of course, the mice. It's kind of like the food chain. So the mice will eat, and the hawks come in, or we've got eagles in this area. They'll come in and eat, and then the turkey and the songbirds before the migration, they'll fill up. Then in the winter, we'll have the geese come in. So it feeds a whole lot of different animals. So yeah, it works, and of course the dove.
Yeah. So you kind of let the field just kind of nature take its course.
Yeah, that's what you do. And then once we're done, once we get into, right after the first of the year, you see it's just a lot of brown with the heads, the flowers hung over, and then you wind up, everything gets turned back into the earth, and we start again.
Okay.
So, but you can run through there, and they're very brittle. So I mean, if a bird lands on them in the winter, sometimes you just see them fall on over because they're that brittle. So it's pretty cool.
Huh. You had already mentioned about wanting to expand and get more fields and everything. Is there like any particular crops that you guys want to try, or?
Yeah, so this year we did something different. We've always planted except for the strawberries, those are plants. Everything else we plant by seed. This year we actually bought 2,000 watermelon plants, several hundred cantaloupe plants, and several hundred tomato plants. Planted them and then did the okra the same way. And it's pretty fascinating to see how much quicker it begins to bear fruit from a plant than from a seed. So we would like to branch out into maybe some squash and some beans, the other things that have a pretty short seed or plant to product span. Like squash is 45 days from seed to harvest. Okay. So you start, and squash produces for a short period of time, but it produces a lot of fruits or vegetables. So if there's other things we'd like to get into. Of course, it all depends on time and land and money. Working full time, it's not so easy to do all that, and watching it. It's late nights and early mornings, and then go work during the day, and those types of things.
Yeah. Do y'all ever sleep?
Yeah. I slept pretty good last night. I got in the bed about midnight, and I woke up about 4 this morning, and I headed out somewhere a little after 5. So.
See, I can't do that.
Yeah.
That's why I see people doing that, and that's what, even with this, what I'm doing, I have to pace myself and watch myself, trying to make sure I don't bite off more than I can chew.
Right.
Although technically I kind of have with some stuff, but I'm I know my limits, and I need my sleep. That's one of the things that I need.
Yeah. So to do these types of things, how do you you kind of know how we prepare? Early mornings, late nights. Late nights you're fixing equipment and things like that. Early mornings you're up checking for making sure everything's all right, especially if there was a storm, things didn't blow over. How do you prepare yourself for an interview?
So for this, literally all I had to do last night, I made a note to do it last night before I went to bed, was pull out the microphones and the camera, make sure my camera battery was charged, the memory card's in there, and grab my tripod. So I just basically put that stuff by my stuff for in the morning, so I wouldn't forget to take it with me to work. Yeah. And I came here straight from work. So it's very simple and easy, but a few days before, I do my research where I went on your website and I read the about. That's why I love, not everybody does, but most people do have that about or kind of page or something, with a little more background. That way I'm not going in completely blind, all I know is your name,
Right.
So I really appreciate when people do that, because there are a few people that don't do that, and then it's kind of grasping for straws, because I don't know what questions to ask other than the obvious stuff,
Yeah.
So it's nice to be able to pre-read someone's about and then draw more questions from that about, because then I can ask deeper questions that's not already on the website. So
my son Will takes care of our Facebook page. Thank goodness we've got him. Everybody's more technologically advanced than I am, but our careers paths are really not that much different. If you think, there is a lot of preparation. We have to lay out the fields. We have to think about what the irrigation system is going to look like. How far can we pump in a 4-acre field and add maybe 1 acre from the other field to do that? That sort of thing. So it's a lot of preparation. It's a lot of reading. It's a lot of seed and harvest learnings for us too. Research, and then you're always preparing the night before for the next day.
Yeah.
Which to me is always. Did I have everything I need?
Exactly.
To be successful in the next, because I interview every day with the folks they come here. They want to say, okay, have they moved the props? Are they nice? Are they having a bad day? But people don't care about our problems. They're out here for a good time, and we want to make sure that they leave with the best experience. So, you go to work, you prep this thing that you're doing now with the blog. You come and you're prepped, and if you've had a bad day, you don't want the person you're interviewing to feel, and we're the exact same way. We want them to come here and say, you know what, that was a heck of an experience. I want to go back. Let's take the grandkids on the weekend or what have you.
Yeah.
So
customer service is key. I'm very passionate about customer service.
Right.
My first few jobs were in customer service, so I'm very passionate about that. I don't know. I guess some people are cut out for it, and some people aren't. So that's one thing, but I mean, in my experience, I found like there's no excuse to, even if you're having a bad day, there's no excuse to like kind of rub off on somebody else that negative attitude. So
exactly. I worked for a boss one time, and he really a good guy. And by the way, he was a farmer too, and he says, you know, at the end of the day, nobody cares how deep the swells are, how hard the wind blows. All they want to know is when the ship comes to shore.
Yeah.
And that's really true. You know, so the ship came to shore now, so we're just enjoying watching it sit here in port for a little while, and then we'll sail back out and do something else. So it's a lot of fun.
I don't know where it is. I guess it's the barn somewhere over there. You mentioned on the website something about barn art.
Yeah.
So what's the story behind that?
So every
when did that start?
So I've got a son who's probably far more creative. Well, he's far more creative than I am, far more technologically advanced than I am. But he can see a leaf and see a skyscraper in it. So he can take any piece, and it's over at the far barn. He can look at a hay rake wheel, and it's spoked, comes out, and it picks up the hay as you pull across. There's 8 wheels in that mechanism. But he sees that, and what I see is just a hunk of steel that's missing some teeth, and we got to replace the teeth. He sees that as a sunflower head. And then he'll see a gearbox off a disc mower, which I see as something going in the scrap heap for the scrap metal man. He sees that as leaves. And then a chain he sees as the stalk. So we can walk over there, and it's pretty impressive, but it's all just different pieces of equipment that we have robbed every piece off of to get the last bit of life out of it, and that's what's left. And so he's put it on the barn for people to see, and just it's very creative. In fact, we look around and say, you know, let's put this in the scrap heap, and then me or Aubie will say, let's let Will look at it first, see what he thinks he can do with it. So it's kind of cool to do. But you know, I mean, he takes care of our Facebook page, and you can tell just by doing that how creative he is and what he puts in. We couldn't do that. You know, it's just not our. We didn't grow up with Facebook.
Right.
We didn't even grow up with computers. I didn't have a computer till I was a senior in high school, a Commodore 64. It was nothing but an electric typewriter. So it was kind of cool once I got older and learned, you know, how computers worked and things like that. I couldn't function without them now.
Exactly.
But there's some days I sure would like to.
I know.
So cell phones too.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of having the farm too, is you are out in the country.
Right.
And it kind of forces you to get away from technology
and
actually enjoy life and nature and stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you have you could have a crappy day. You could come out here and sit and look at the mountain. Or what's really interesting, you know, a lot of folks have allergies, and I do too. And we actually sell honey that's produced on this farm and then farms on this road. Actually, we've got beehives over there that a gentleman brings up, and you know the payment is us selling his honey for us to use his bees, and that just works well.
Yeah.
But to sit here in the spring, and there's some cedar trees and pine trees over here, and just to watch the wind blow and just watch the pollen blow out, to me it's fascinating. I'm sitting here, my eyes running, because there's some pollen from the sunflowers and grass pollen and stuff too, but I can sit out here all day and watch that, and it's fascinating knowing that pollen's coming out because it's pollinating the next growth of the trees or that sort of thing. So it's kind of neat to watch, and watching the bees too on the flowers and stuff is just fascinating.
So you pick for the strawberries, the sunflowers, and the pumpkins. Do you plan on doing that for anything else? Maybe the vegetables if they get to that
probably
point?
not, because I actually grow them on the next farm over, and our agreement is that we take care of that. We don't let anyone go over on that farm.
Right.
And strawberries, we try and do it at least once a year. This year we were able to do it one weekend, but we have the folks come in and pick for us. They're here to make as much money as they can, and I don't want to let anybody come in and pick before they're done. They need to really be done before we open up to you pick, because you pick's hard on your fields. Sunflowers not as much as strawberries and even pumpkins, because once folks start walking in the field, you know, plants get broken. It's no one's fault, it just happens. Strawberries are pretty delicate, so if you don't pull it just right, you break the whole plant. We expect that plant to produce, you know, a certain amount of berries for us. So if we did it in the beginning, we wouldn't have the production that we have an expectation for, or that return. We did it the first 2 years, and most strawberry producers start off that way with U-pick. That they steadily progress to having folks come in that are experts at picking and know what to pick, when to pick, and that sort of thing. So
yeah, I didn't realize all the nuances of strawberry picking, so I went to, I actually, because of you guys, I found Lorenzen Farm.
Yeah.
So, yeah, because of your, because we
told them,
Facebook page,
yeah.
so I went over there and I chatted with her and everything too, and yeah, she was telling me how they started out with like 1,000 strawberry plants and realized that was too many because they weren't doing you pick at first. They started the opposite. They started like, and they're like, this is too much to harvest ourselves, and that's why they do you pick only.
Come on in here, Aubie. So Aubie actually owns a farm. I was telling her early on that, you know, what I learned from you, and it's a little bit we learned together, but most of the farming stuff because you had always done it. So
yeah, I grew into it. So ever since I was, you know, born here, so it's just something I learned as I went along. We raised cattle mostly. We raised corn for solids, and we raised baby calves, like 100 at a time, Holstein heifers. Finished those out to springers, and then we always had some beef cows and things like that, but not produce. My grandfather did. My grandfather raised strawberry plants and strawberries like in the 50s and 60s.
Okay. So this was still kind of new to you too then, a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, the crop-wise, I guess.
She asked us a little bit about, you know, the potential for future crops, and we talked a little about the watermelons and okra and cantaloupe, and you know what else we might be into in the future. I said we learned this year that squash is, you know, seed to product produce is 45 days.
Yeah, it's pretty quick.
Yeah, you may want to talk about some other stuff we may be able to do in the future.
I was experimenting with the tomatoes this year. And the watermelons and the cantaloupes. Of course, you can't get a watermelon or cantaloupe in this area to ripen by the 4th of July. And so if we'd have got them planted just a little bit earlier, they'd have been ripe with the sunflowers. So that would have been great. They're going to be a couple of weeks past the sunflowers. So next year maybe we get them planted earlier and have everything come in at, you know, at this time. Same way with the tomatoes, they're going to be a little bit late.
One thing I didn't ask is how y'all met.
Well, I knew Bill in high school. I don't know if he knew me. I was younger than him in high school, and he was a class clown, so everybody knew Bill.
So everybody knew him.
And then we worked together at UPS.
Okay.
So
then how did you get into the whole farming world? Did he pull you in?
He pulled me in, yeah. I blame it all on him. So we just been friends, and it worked out. Just, it was fun, and I bought the farm up there. He said, hey, this farm up the road's for sale. You need to go talk. Here's the number. Call the guy. And we did, and that's what got me to move up here. And then we got into the sunflowers, like I said earlier, because you know people were just coming in and picking, and wouldn't. Some people would ask, and he didn't allow them, but they'd come after. He wasn't here all the time. People just come in, and there'd just be spots that they'd be bare. So he said, hey, let's see if we can do something with this. And that's kind of how we got this. And strawberry opportunity came up because he had driven the bus for the guy, and he said, hey, let's, you know, if you're interested, we're retiring, you need to get into this. And Aubie jumped on it, and he drugged me along too, so I'm just riding his coattails.
Aubie, from your perspective, how was it when people were sneaking in to look at the sunflowers before you opened to the public?
every year there would be more people show up. Some of them would just start taking pictures, or they'd knock on the door, hey, do you care if we take, pictures of the sunflowers? And then they started, wanting to pick them. Well, it's no, you can't pick them, you can't pick, it's for the hunting club, you can't, I don't want you to pick them. Then it got to where it was like, you'd pull up here, and I thought I was trespassing. 20 or 30 people parked in the front yard and in my barn taking pictures and all this.
Oh,
and so I said, well, you know what, I'm gonna, everybody says they wanna, we'll pay you to pick some. I said, I'm gonna see if they will. So I planted a separate patch.
Yeah, well, that was
and
nice.
And then the news media has been wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, they got a hold of the stories, and because we don't charge anything, people just come out and walk around and take family photos, so it's kind of blossomed.
That's nice that you
intended.
Yeah.
Nice that you reacted that way instead of being like, get off my property, never come back,
Yeah.
That you had the opposite idea.
It's kind of weird. When I grew up, nobody lived out here. I mean, when I went to high school, all my friends, most of them were from East Brainerd, down in that part of it. I mean, this was like way out. Right. And now it's not. Now everybody wants to be out here. And so, having company was a thrill to me. So, I guess that's kind of the reason I'm turned that way.
Yeah, you've actually got quite the nice spot, because it's like you had this farmland for, I don't even know how long it was in your family, but you got all this farmland, and then Oodle, they start developing oodle and it keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And so basically it's coming to you. You don't have to go to them.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice.
Yeah.
They come visit, we get to enjoy them, they get to enjoy hanging out with us, and they go home, then they come back a few weeks later and see us again.
Yeah.
But it's cool to see people come out. The photographs with their kids each year, because we've got them, now there's some been here every year for, at least the last 6 or 7, and some longer than that we probably don't know about. They may have been sneaking in.
Right.
Come on, little Johnny, let me get you pictures. So.
Yeah, so you see the kids getting as tall as the sunflowers?
Yeah.
I do have one more question, actually, because I'm not super familiar with sunflowers, but since you allow people to pick them, what do you do with them? Other than like for decoration, is there?
They pick them for decoration. People have told us that they've got them the last 2 weeks. They, keep them trimmed off, and a lot of people will vacuum up the pollen because the pollen will fall off.
Okay.
And then here in a couple of weeks there'll be some that are drooped over and the seeds are already formed, and people will want those to take home for their birds.
Okay.
To hang up around their bird feeders.
Yeah, that was kind of my segue into that was, how do you suggest keeping them? Like, what's the best way to keep them? So if you pick sunflowers, you want to keep them nice for however long they last.
A little Clorox water. What do we?
Yeah. Sugar there. Change it every other day at the same time, and all kinds of stuff. So what I've heard my wife tell people is Google it, and you decide which method works best for you.
Really? So there's that many different,
there's
like opposing ideas too.
Yeah, because it's
warm water. I mean, they say you don't want to put like fresh cut flowers. I've read, putting cold water on, I guess, shocks them or something. But they want to use warm water.
So y'all don't even know. You're not experts on the picking side of it because y'all don't even pick them.
We do good. We do good to make some kind of an arrangement in the bucket when we come out and pick for somebody that says, "Hey, I'm not able. Can you help me?" And we'll do that sometimes.
I do know if you have one that's close to opening up and you cut it, it will open on that.
Okay. Yeah. A lot of flowers do that. I know my friend's a florist, so I've learned a few things about that. But
so you're just testing this, the answer.
I don't. That's the thing. I'm not like that was a genuine this is kind of dumb, but what do you do with them? Because I'm not a huge flower person myself.
And we actually have had some florists come out here and pick them to use in their arrangements.
Yeah.
Once they're getting 100 in a bucket.
Yeah.
Right.
Want to get their money's worth. Yeah.
Have you picked any of your flowers?
Oh yeah. Aubie picked probably the most beautiful bucket I've seen. I mean, and we're not very good at it, but he spent the time the other day and picked it. It was well rounded and just all the flowers with plenty of leaves and the greenery in the background. Then he gave it to the next door neighbor.
Okay.
So it looked good. But we pick a few, but not many. Most of the time it's if somebody's just not able to, we'll go out and maybe pick just a couple for them. It's rare we go out and pick a whole bucket.
Is there like a certain length, certain spot where you say to cut, or does it not matter?
If you cut them different lengths, you can get you can get more in a bucket because you can get down here and then kind of like a Christmas tree.
Yeah, so it doesn't really matter where you cut them. It's pretty much the same because they're really long stem.
Plenty long enough, so when they get home and put them in, if they get an arrangement, they want to put them in, make sure they're stem long enough.
Right.
A lot of people have these big vases on their front porch and stuff that they transfer them in.
And you want to be able to have enough there that you can trim them over the next few days. Because once it kind of plugs up, the vessels plug up at the end. If you use sugar water or Sprite or something like that, it'll get kind of gum. And then it stops being able to pull the nutrients out. Things I'd like for you to look at while you're here. One is if you see all the sunflowers are fairly consistent in height. Not all, but most are. But if a seed comes in, and Aubie told me this, if seed comes back, volunteer for the next year. I mean, we didn't plant it. It probably fell out, got turned, and just was the right depth. And a lot of times it'll go really tall like a single flower, like a periscope, or it'll grow like a tree and have multiple blooms on it, which is cool, but they're all really small blooms. Last year we had one that had about 40 blooms on it. Wow. This year I found one though that has 7, and it's kind of in a little small area that if nobody's gotten in there, not really paying attention, they wouldn't notice it. But I'd love to show you that. Okay. Sunflowers are heliotropic, meaning they follow the sun, but they don't do that once they get to be a certain size, because their main purpose in life is to produce seeds. And so they'll, when they're small and just before they open, they follow the sun till they get enough inside they don't have to turn anymore with it, and they lock on in the east. That's why you see all the sunflowers. If you look from this side, you can see how they're all facing us.
Yeah.
But when you walk to the other end and look back this way, you're looking at the back of them.
Right.
So it's kind of cool if you do a little research on just the sunflower itself, what makes it do that and how it works. It's kind of fascinating.
You really noticed that for some reason this year when they were like this, you really noticed that they were like, man, y'all are facing the wrong way.
Yeah.
But you know, they were turning.
Yeah.
And then I don't know why this year was more.
Yeah.
Maybe it was a variety we planted or something.
And every morning they're right back.
Yeah.
Looking to the east, waving when I drive to work.
And then once they bloom, they're there. They're not moving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I tell everybody I plant the seeds. You have to turn the seed just right.
Make sure it's facing the sun.
Yeah.
I forgot one other thing. Your website says something about like wildflowers too,
We didn't do that.
Variety of flowers.
Yeah, we didn't do that this year. No, we ran out of time and probably ran out of money too at that point to try and get it all done. But it takes it's primarily when we have the guys come in that pick strawberries that help us with a lot of things and work in the land and stuff. But then it gets to that and it's primarily me and Aubie and then Ronnie that helps too doing stuff. And then if I'm working or he's on the bus, it's just we just don't have enough time to do it. There's just not enough of us.
Right.
So but we hope to in the fall. We did that in the fall a couple of years ago, and it was wonderful. People love those sunflowers in the fall, and then the wildflowers.
Yeah. If I planted them now, they would still make.
Yeah.
They're pretty quick.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I hadn't been here before. It's been on my list of something to do. I knew about the sunflowers, and then I knew about the strawberries, I knew about the pumpkins, but I didn't know what else you guys did until I started looking at the website, and it's like, oh, they do corn and hay and wildflowers, and so I hadn't seen anything about that, so that's why I was just
honey,
curious.
we got the honey.
And some of the other things we do here, though, we've got a couple of Girl Scout troops coming on the 22nd, and the bee guy comes and talks to them about the importance of bees and the pollination. Aubie or I talked to them, about the farming. Then we talked to them a little bit about business because, like I said earlier, it's a business. You're running a business here. Talked to them a little bit about that. I think they get a badge for it, and they just hang out and have a good time for the evening with us. We give the couple of their leaders the knives, and they get to go out there. We let each of them cut a flower and take it home with them. So, and then they'll send a picture back or something with their picture with the flower, what they've done, maybe in their uniform or something like that.
We have several nursing homes or assisted living homes come out here, and we let them drive the van up the gravel driveways, and because they can't get out, most of them.
Right.
They really enjoy that.
Yep.
That's nice.
There was one here yesterday. I didn't get to talk to them.
Yeah, there was two today.
Two today.
Yeah, two today that came in. So, and they know that they can come up here, get to see. And one of the ladies, she was funny. We gave her a bucket to go pick and take back so they could have it for their centerpiece when they go to dinner tonight.
Oh.
So it's cool. We did the school deal a couple years ago, and we did it this year too. Strawberries for the after-school lunch packs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Anything else you would like to add?
Follow us on Facebook. Everything goes on here is there. You want to know it's there when we open, when we close, what crop, what band's playing.
And this is where we end. But just to elaborate on what Bill said, yes, please go check them out on Facebook. That's where they post all their updated information, including special events happening during various crop seasons, like you mentioned, bands, and just, you never know what they're going to be doing. So definitely keep an eye out on their Facebook page. And I just want to thank Bill and Aubie for allowing me this opportunity for Behind the Business Chat. I really enjoyed getting to learn more about this farm, and I hope y'all did too. We didn't have time to go over everything in this episode, so be sure to check out the blog post, which will be linked below, for more info and other stories behind aspects of this business. If you've been to Smith Perry Berries before, let me know in the comments below and tell me your favorite part about the farm. And if you haven't been yet, tell me what you are most looking forward to. Thanks for watching. Give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see y'all next week.